Sir Patrick Stewart had attended hundreds of interviews in his life, but nothing felt quite as strangely tense as the atmosphere in Lorraine Kelly's studio that morning. The lights were bright, the audience was warm, and Lorraine herself greeted him with her usual cheery smile, yet something felt off, like a storm hovering just outside the frame. Patrick straightened his blazer, inhaled softly, and reminded himself, this is just another interview. Be patient. He was there to promote his new memoir, Shadows of Stardom, a deeply personal reflection on his theater roots, his journey through Hollywood, and the memories he had never shared publicly before. As cameras rolled, Lorraine started gently, asking about his childhood, his inspiration, and his return to the stage. Patrick relaxed, even laughed once or twice. But 10 minutes in, the tone shifted, subtly at first, then sharply. So, Patrick, Lorraine said, tapping her cue cards, a lot of people online think your memoir is exaggerated. Some even say you've painted yourself too much like a victim. What do you say to those accusations? Patrick blinked, taken aback. Exaggerated. Victim. He repeated, trying to keep the confusion off his face. My memoir is truthful. These are my memories. Lorraine offered a tight smile, the kind she wore when she sensed a spark. Of course, but some critics say certain stories don't quite line up. Especially your claims about a major director mistreating you on set back in the 80s. A quiet ripple of murmurs traveled through the studio audience. Patrick's jaw tightened. He had expected questions, even difficult ones, but accusations, especially ones thrown so casually, made something inside him twist. I didn't accuse anyone. I shared my experience. If someone disagrees with it, that's their choice. But you do name the director, Lorraine pressed, flipping a card. And you imply he sabotaged your early Hollywood career. Isn't that a serious allegation to make publicly after so many years? Patrick's mouth went dry. Why is she phrasing it like this? He wondered. He had carefully written the memoir with honesty but also restraint. He hadn't wanted controversy, only closure. I don't imply anything, he said firmly. I describe the events as they happened. I'm not looking to start a feud. Lorraine nodded slowly, then leaned forward with an almost theatrical frown. Some viewers think, she said, each word measured, that you're using these stories to draw sympathy, or to stay relevant. The studio fell silent. Patrick felt something cold inside him snap. Excuse me, he said, his voice dropping lower, calmer, but dangerously controlled. Lorraine gave a half shrug. Well, people talk. It's my job to ask. Patrick rested both hands on his knees. Lorraine, he said, choosing his words carefully, I came here because I respect your platform. I've spoken openly about my past, not for attention, not for sympathy, but because I finally felt ready. To suggest I'm doing it for relevance is, he exhaled sharply. It's insulting. A flicker of discomfort crossed Lorraine's face, but the cameras were rolling, and she didn't back down. Patrick, I'm not trying to insult you. I'm just. But you have insulted me, he interrupted, raising a hand. What you're doing is framing my life's struggles as a publicity stunt. That's unfair. And untrue. The audience murmured again. Lorraine shifted in her seat. I'm simply asking what the public wants to know. Patrick slowly stood up. Then perhaps, he said, straightening his blazer with a trembling hand, you should let them read the book instead of reducing it to accusations. Patrick, wait, Lorraine began, but he shook his head. No, I think I'm done here. He stood tall, dignified, but unmistakably wounded, and stepped away from his chair. The camera operators scrambled, producers gestured wildly from behind the glass, and Lorraine looked momentarily stunned. But Patrick didn't stop. With each step toward the exit, he felt the heat of embarrassment, the sting of frustration, and somehow, the strange relief of walking away from something that no longer felt respectful. Just as he reached the edge of the stage, Lorraine called after him, Patrick, please, can we talk about this? He paused. The audience held its breath. Without turning around, he said quietly but clearly, some conversations deserve respect. This wasn't one of them. And with that, he walked off the set, leaving Lorraine speechless, the audience buzzing, and social media seconds away from exploding. When Patrick stepped out of the studio doors and into the quieter back hallway, the adrenaline that had carried him off stage began to fade, leaving behind a heavy ache in his chest. A production assistant hurried after him, calling his name, but he gently waved her off. "I just need a moment," he said softly. He leaned against the wall, closed his eyes, and inhaled deeply. How had such a simple interview spiraled so sharply? He wasn't a man prone to public outbursts. Decades in theater had taught him patience, diplomacy, professionalism. But something in Lorraine's tone, the insinuations, the carelessness with which she treated his memories, had struck a nerve he didn't realize was still raw. Behind him, the muffled sounds of the studio continued, Lorraine trying to regain her composure, the audience whispering, staff moving quickly to fill the unexpected silence. Within 10 minutes, the internet had already erupted. Clips of Patrick standing up, Lorraine's stunned face, and the awkward cut to commercial break were circulating on social media. Some viewers defended Patrick, praising his dignity. Others criticized Lorraine for being needlessly provocative. And a small but loud corner of the internet insisted that Patrick had overreacted. A producer finally approached him gently. "Sir Patrick, we're truly sorry. Would you like to speak to Lorraine privately?" Patrick opened his eyes and shook his head. "Not now," he said. "If she wishes to speak, she can reach out later." He picked up his coat and quietly left through a side exit, stepping into the cool London air. Despite the chaos online, the world outside was calm. Taxis passing, people chatting on the sidewalks, the city unaware of the storm brewing inside television studios. Meanwhile, inside the Lorraine show's offices, it was chaos. Lorraine Kelly sat in her dressing room, staring at her reflection. Her smile had faded, replaced by a worried crease between her eyebrows. She replayed the interview in her mind, realizing that perhaps she had pushed too far, too quickly. She was known for being warm but direct, yet today, something had been off. Maybe it was the pressure from producers asking for spicier content, or the trending debates around celebrity memoirs. Her phone buzzed non-stop with messages. "What happened? Are you okay? Twitter is going crazy." Lorraine sighed deeply. She hadn't meant to insult him. But intentions didn't always matter once the cameras were rolling. Her producer knocked and entered carefully. "Lorraine, the network wants us to issue a statement." "Already?" Lorraine whispered. "Clip has over 1 million views in 20 minutes. Lorraine rubbed her forehead. "I didn't want this. None of us did," the producer said gently. "But we have to get ahead of it." At home, Patrick sat by his window with a cup of tea, the city lights flickering below. His phone buzzed endlessly, colleagues reaching out, fans sending support, journalists requesting comments. He ignored them all for the moment. He pulled his memoir closer, flipping through the pages. Every chapter held a truth he had lived, not invented. Every painful moment he had written had cost him something. To have it dismissed on live television as exaggeration, it hurt more than he cared to admit. His doorbell rang unexpectedly. His longtime friend and fellow actor, Ian McKellen, stood outside with a bottle of wine and a raised brow. "I saw the clip," Ian said, stepping in without waiting. "You walked out. Magnificent form, by the way." Patrick exhaled, half laughing. "Ian, I wasn't trying to make a scene." "No," Ian replied, pouring 2 glasses, "but sometimes scenes make themselves." "Sit." Patrick sat reluctantly. Ian placed a glass in front of him. "Patrick, people will talk. They always do. But your story is your story. You didn't owe her anything more than what you gave." "She accused me of using my trauma as a publicity stunt," Patrick murmured. Ian's eyes softened, but his voice remained firm. "And you defended yourself with grace. That's all one can do." Patrick took a sip of wine, the warmth calming him. 3 hours later, Lorraine Kelly posted a public statement. Greater than, "I want to personally apologize to Sir Patrick Stewart if my questions came across as disrespectful. That was never my intention. I have the utmost admiration for him and his work. I hope we can speak privately and clear the air." The apology spread quickly. Soon after, Patrick's publicist gently advised him, a short response might help calm things. Patrick considered it carefully before typing a simple message. Greater than, "Thank you for the messages of support. My memoir is deeply personal, and emotions ran high today. I appreciate Lorraine's statement and hope we can discuss this in a respectful manner." The words felt honest, not defensive, not accusatory, just truthful. By evening, the storm began to settle. Public opinion remained divided, but many praised Patrick for standing up for his truth. Some even pre-ordered his memoir after the controversy, curious to understand the stories he fought to protect. As Patrick closed his phone for the night, he felt a quiet sense of peace. Not victory, not satisfaction, but clarity. Sometimes walking away wasn't weakness. Sometimes it was the only dignified thing left to do. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he knew this wasn't the end of the story, but at least, for now, it was enough.